and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I'm excited to introduce today's special guest, Dr. Dawnmarie Risley, and we talk about what it's like to embrace what has happened to you, maybe for you, as well as finding hope in the dark. She offers over 30 years of experience and all of her insight and growth through what she's gone through and how she's able to help other people. I hope you stick around for this episode as we talk about overcoming trauma and how we can make the world a better place by having these conversations. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited about our chat.
Thank you. I'm excited too, Jessica. We've already had a little pre-chat and it's been fun.
Yes. Well, I would love to pass it over to you. That way you could introduce yourself to our audience and we'll jump into all these amazing things that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm Dawnmarie Risley-Childs, DM for short. I'm a board certified psychiatrist. I've been practicing medicine for 30 years now, or soon in May, it'll be 30 years since I graduated from medical school. And I am a trauma thriver. So I experienced tremendous amounts of trauma growing up by numerous perpetrators. And now I'm in my thriving mode. And I hope to give and bring hope to your listeners.
I love that so much because there's so many people. I was recently talking to a friend about our trauma experiences and how so many people are so scared to speak up about what they've gone through because of shame, lack of understanding, or even putting it on the person who caused us the trauma and like almost like protecting the person. So I'm really glad that you're one of those people that are saying, hey, I'm here. I want to speak about this. I want to talk about this. And you wrote a book about this too, right?
I did. So I wrote a book about my life up to present day. I mean, there's more books in my head and words on the page that I'm getting to. I think there's at least 5 more coming. I'm looking forward to when I can sit down and, just write again. But so I wrote a book. It's called It's Behind Me. It's called The Offering, a physician's journey through abuse, psychedelics, and the freedom of forgiveness. And in this book, we don't have to talk about all the specific traumas, but in this book is the sexual trauma that I experienced and how I came out on the other side.
I love that you had mentioned about how a lot of traumas that we go through are meant to silence us often, and that your book is a way to really bring this to light and talk about it instead of people feeling like they can't and that they're silenced by it.
Well, that's because they are silenced. They're silenced while they're experiencing the trauma, especially when you're a kid, when you're being threatened that if you talk, you're going to be in big trouble. And look what you did. And certainly my stepfather did that with me because he recognized that, or after one of the big events that occurred, I was told not to talk about it. And about a month later, and I mentioned this in the book, that we had parent-teacher conferences and my parents walked in and, I was a top student and I was a good girl and I did everything I was supposed to do. I had to because I had to stay in line. And they mentioned something about my cousin and needing to speak with his mother because he was also getting abused at home. And there was one line, it was just a benign line where the teacher had asked me a question. What's going on with him? Is everything going on at home? Is everything okay at home? And I just said, yes, he has some problems. And that's all I said. And it was World War III in my home when they came home. You're not allowed to say anything out of here, outside of here. And that stuck with me until I went to college. And then when I went to college, then things got even worse, to the point where I had a moment where I had heat stroke, and my stepfather used that moment to terrorize me. And then afterwards, came out on the coercive, manipulative side. That kept me silent for another 5 years and kept me backpedaling and into this quote, relationship and engagement that took me beyond the statute of limitations. And it wasn't until I was in medical school that I was able to break away. And it really, the book opens up with, that moment, that when that was that defining moment, that breakaway moment, when my housemate asked me, okay, who is this person? Who is Ron? Who is this person? And he figured out that this was my stepfather, that he had been married to my mother. And that's how I was able to break away from him, because someone else recognized that there was a big problem here. And that moment broke open everything, broke open all the floodgates, and it allowed me to escape. And it wasn't a clean break. It was difficult. It was about a 6-month process where I kept getting sucked back in. And oftentimes people who abuse, they go for the low-hanging fruit. So if they can keep abusing you, they're going to, because if they don't have you, they've got to find someone else to abuse, right? So that's what abusive people do, is they continue to abuse others. And so I kept getting sucked back in until there was finally that last break where I said, okay, I'm done here. I'm not going to take the phone calls. I'm going to, I was away long enough, and I had enough supporting people to help me to say these boundaries are broken. And I needed that backup. Yeah. And I got that backup. And I got that support. And it really takes a team to help you. And I had, even a few years ago, I had to break away from my mother. And that took a team. And my classmates that were there for me in medical school, that helped me break away, I brought them together again for our class reunion, for our 26th reunion. We couldn't do 25 because we were stuck in COVID. So I said, well, this is going to be our 25 plus 1 year reunion. We've got to get together. And there were 7 of us that got together in Vegas and met up. And then a year later, there were 12 of us that got together. And we've been in this group chat of 20 of us out of a class of 65. 20 of us are constantly in contact. I'm going back to my alma mater. I'm meeting up with one of my classmates there. Like the reunion just continues on gradually, where we're meeting up with each other. I got stuck in the airport in Phoenix, and twice, I knew I was going to get caught up. I knew I was going to have this layover for 6 hours, and it's like, Sheetal, I'm on my way to your office. Like, what? Like, okay, we're getting together. And so we get together, and these reunions keep coming, and we keep meeting with each other and keep supporting each other, because now that we are 30 years out, and we're all in these transitions of, our children are going off to college, or our children are going off. One of our classmates, 2 of my classmates, actually, several of my classmates, now that I keep thinking about how many classmates' children are now going into medical school. And, we're just here to support each other on these next phases of our lives, because we are into, we're all in our late 50s. Some of us in our early 60s. And, this is the time where some of us are going to start dying off, and some of us are retiring, and, what is our next phase in life? And so, here we are supporting one another, and we've come back together again, and are that family for each other. And that's what I needed to break off with my mother, is that I needed to get that team together. Just like I had gotten that team together way back then, 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago. You got to assemble your team. And when you're making major changes, that's when you assemble your team. Yeah.
And I love like how brave of your housemate being willing to speak up and be there for you, because I think that's something in my own experience. I was in an abusive relationship, and I remember
Yeah.
uh, just the shame and embarrassment.
Yeah.
I'm a Marine. Like, how did I let this happen to myself? Why am I still in this? Like all those kind of questions. So when I finally had come out and admitted it, there was somebody who was supposed to be that support person for me, but
Uh-huh.
instead of supporting me, um, actually made things worse, said some really awful things. And some other people had noticed something was wrong in that kind of circle. And
Right.
they were asking me what was wrong. I said, I kind of shut down. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't like, wow, after coming to someone who I was supposed to trust to help me, and they didn't, they made things worse. I was like, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. And I remember that feeling of like, how am I going to get myself out of this, but get myself out of this in a safe
Yeah.
manner where I can stay safe. And surprisingly,
Discernment
yeah.
is the word. It's discernment. And and you've touched on something very important, because oftentimes when we are trying to escape, we may be handing ourselves over to someone else who is as much of a predator as the predator that we're trying to escape. That is very common. And so discernment comes with experience. And we also must know that trust is earned. Trust is not something that you just willingly give over, because when you trust the first person that you see, yeah, it sometimes can be very frightening. I was very fortunate that I had, and you know, yes, the person who first recognized, he also had a secondary agenda. I mean, we had already been involved in a short, very brief relationship, and I've recognized now the familiarity that I have in all of the relationships, including the one that I'm ending at this moment, and discernment, that is something that it's a good word, it's a good term. Is how do you learn that discernment? And it really means stepping back and taking a look at, is this person safe? It's almost on the brink of paranoia that you get, because you rightfully are still stuck in that surviving mode, and you attach onto what feels familiar very quickly, and it can easily lead you down to the path of being re-victimized. And that's the thing too about speaking out, is because when you finally speak out, we are often re-victimized. Don't say anything. When you say these kinds of things, this is what happens. People are looking at you like you're the bad guy or you're the crazy one. When, oh, how do we stop that mode? I'm not sure how to stop that. To be able to sit there and say, look, this person is victimized. And I think it really, how do we do it? I think because we have to speak up about it, and we have to stand up about it, and we have to start, we start with the pen is mightier than the sword, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. And so when we put it down on pen and paper, this is our statement. And oftentimes the courts protect people who are just as abusive. Why? Because the people who are writing the laws are abusive themselves. Let's take a look at our legislatures, and let's just take a look. Just take a look at Epstein. How many people? I'm not going to name names. I haven't read. I don't want to read all of those emails and such, because I know how just. I don't want to put myself back there. I've already been there. But we have royalty. We have many politicians. We have people in Hollywood. These are all people who can control the narrative, who can control the laws, who make the money, who can put forth that effort to continue re-victimizing young girls. But we also have to recognize this. Where does it start? It starts in our own home. And until we recognize that, until we start voicing that, it's going to continue to perpetuate. It started in my own home. And until we start really looking at who starts it, years ago when I was in residency training, we would have these sessions with like a group session, a group training session with a patient where the patient was being interviewed. And it was a analytically oriented program. And the attending I'd always chuckle because I'd say to the person next to me, he's going to blame the mother. Like, he's going to blame the watch. Just a minute. He's going to say the mother, right? Ready, watch. Like, see. And I would kind of laugh because it was so predictable. Mm. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I was really ready to admit to myself of where did my abuse originate from, and it originated from my mother. And we have to look at that. And I hadn't wanted to lose my mother at that point. I wasn't ready to let it go. But it came to a point where she was just so abusive that I just couldn't let it go anymore. And I had to admit to it. And I had been protecting her for many years. I had this concept for this book when I was 35. I'm 57 now. I just published it 2 years ago. So it's 2 years ago now that's been published. So, me turning 55, I finally said, I have this book I need to write. This was a piece of work that I wanted to do, that I needed to do for myself, to put it out there. And that's really when the hard work started. That's really when the healing began, was the fact that I could put this on paper. But it also, the process of the writing also allowed me to question, where did that work come from? Why was I going over to Big John's to sit on his lap? What about that thing? I remember she watched him watching me. Let me revisit that, because when you're a 6-year-old and you see your mom's boyfriend peeping around the corner while you're getting dressed, and you see yourself huddled there, what does the mind do to help you survive all that while you're in it? You dissociate from it. You tuck it back in the corner and you say, well, that didn't happen. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe let me go back into my room and then come back out and see if she's gone. So maybe that didn't happen. It allows you gaslight yourself. You gaslight yourself in order to make this, to survive. And there's an interesting statistic where most people, don't disclose. And who can blame us from not disclosing it? Because when we disclose, we get re-victimized. But we also oftentimes if we're going to disclose, we don't disclose until the 5th decade. So I was right on time at being 55 to finally put it down on pen and paper and see it in print. And what comes out of that now we're left flapping in the wind at age 50, trying to reinvent ourselves. It's a daunting process. It's quite a lot. I can tell you, it's not an easy task. It's not. You have to be very brave to be able to step in it. But if you don't step in it, then where are you? You're still stuck in the past and you're still suffering. So either way, you're suffering. You're either going to suffer from moving forward or you're going to suffer from being stuck. Well, let me suffer moving forward to see what the next thing is, because it's got to be better than what I've been living with in the past. And that's, where I am, is moving forward and coaching others through trauma and tragedy. And I'm looking at it, in the healing profession, in the healing field. Who do I want to work with now? I've worked with inmates, I've worked with veterans, I've worked with so many people who are hurting. Now I'm looking at my colleagues and I'm seeing them hurting. in this profession, and I'm saying, oh, okay, hold on. I'm looking at how the pattern is universal. I'm a good pattern recognizer. Can I sit there and recite every single criteria in the DSM? No, but you know what? I got a book for it. So if I want to look at that, I can look. But what I can do is, what I'm very good at is recognizing the patterns. And now the patterns that I saw in my family life, I can also see that in all of my relationships that I've had, that coercive control pattern, but I can also see it in the hospital systems where I've worked. And in the system itself. And so now I'm bringing awareness of the coercive controlling patterns in medicine. It's a pretty dangerous thing that I'm doing, actually. So, but I'm seeing it in medicine. And my goal is to help women physicians heal, to allow them to see it themselves. It's something that they already know. But when someone else shows you, look, here's where the pattern is, there's that aha moment. Someone else sees it too. They feel validated. And when they feel validated that they're not crazy, this really is happening, that allows them a moment to change, to a moment to say, okay, I'm ready for change. I'm ready to do something different. And does that mean that they're going to stay in medicine? It may mean that what they're going to do is they're going to create medicine to fit around them, so that they're no longer trying to fit themselves around medicine. And it allows them to break away from the system and do something different and create something that is truly healing for others, for their patients. And that's what those are my new goals. Those are what I'm looking at.
I love that you brought that up too, is that for my experience caring for my husband for the past 6 years, I'd always say it's the systems that kill people, not the people trying to work with broken systems.
Exactly.
I love that this is kind of, it's the same thing, but another take and another angle for it is how those systems are affecting women's ability to do their job, and then women to get treatment and care. Because how many times has it been, especially when it comes to sexual assault and sexual abuse, even now, like you brought up a great example with Epstein, like how many people saw it and looked the other way, but how many times does that happen on a regular basis? And how many more stories are we going to hear about, especially women in the military being murdered because they were assaulted and reported it? It just, again, system after system after system failing you, but being able to break free. And how beautiful you said it is that, women maybe making a system work for them, or creating a system that can work for them, and not staying in a broken system. Maybe it's creating something entirely new.
Exactly. And, but it's also, not only just that, but it's also creating the ability to do that. Because what happens, like now I understand the patterns of student loans. We create something that is so costly to get to that the only way that you can make the money to pay the student loans off is to continue doing that job. And so you get caught in these golden handcuff situations where you are tied to the system and you have no way to break away because you have 30 years left of payments or 25 years left of payments. I still, I borrowed $147,000 for student loans. Now, at the moment, that was freedom because it meant that I didn't have to rely on my stepfather anymore. So that allowed me to break away. But then what? By the time, people who have trauma, they are known to relapse into those traumatic episodes. So, I was going from one residency to another. I did 3 different residencies. I finished up in New York. I did a family practice residency that I left. Then I did a residency down in Southern California where I was getting attacked by another narcissist And at the same time, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and so I was on stimulants to help me with focus. And while it helped me focus, it also led to a rebound depression that was so dark that I just, every night that I fell asleep, I had wished, please just take me. I can't take this depression anymore. But I had done Mary Kay Cosmetics before, and I had my director would say, most people give up hope when success is right around the corner. Mm. And so every day I would say that to myself, success is right around the corner. Success is right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Don't give up hope. It's right around the corner. And that kept me alive during that 3-month episode. And then the next thing you know, I have, this job offer, and I'm moving to Northern California, and I have this great boss who becomes like a father figure to me, who, still to this day, his picture is on my desk. He died some years ago, but it was just a whole nother chapter of my life that, I got out of that situation. And then I ended up finishing residency strong as a chief resident in the Bronx with a program director that was just amazing. Was an amazing treater, amazing healer, amazing teacher, just on this whole other side that, this series of events that just perpetuated my knowledge. And then I got a head injury. So, but here's where I am. I'm in a place where I'm able to look at, these are things that happened for me, not happened to me. And so, yes, I injured my head. I crashed my parachute. I was skydiving. I crashed my parachute. I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had a post-concussive syndrome. So why did that happen for me? Well, that has allowed me as a competent physician to be able to move in and learn what head trauma feels like. Because I already know what depression feels like. I know what PTSD feels like. I know what anxiety feels like. I know what ADHD feels like. I know what sometimes temporary psychosis, moments of psychosis feel like. I know I've lived this. So psychiatry, being a psychiatrist hasn't just been something that I do. It's something that I've lived. And so when I'm with a patient, I'm there in the moment with them because I understand. I have a true understanding of what they are living with and what they're living through. So when I tell them, there is something on the other side that comes from truth, that comes from firsthand experience. Not just some superficial doctor that's saying you're going to be all right, here, just take this pill. And so that, that head injury happened for me, not just to me. That makes sense. Yeah. And you said you survived TBI as well. So you know what I'm saying when I hear about the paranoia or the sudden crying experiences. And I've had patients some years back. I've had this a couple times where I've had patients who have had these odd experiences that no one else has been able to figure out. And they end up going to psychiatry because no one else is able to figure out what is going on with them. I've had a couple people who have had olfactory delusions. And I've been able to tell them, this is not a psychiatric problem. Because common things happen commonly. And olfactory hallucinations, to say that this is psychosis is wrong. You have a neurologic problem. You might have a migraine. And so I've sent a few people to UCSF because they're one of the few places that recognize olfactory hallucinations as migraine. They're the first people that I refer them to. I'm sending you to UCSF. You need to get there. And the looks on their face of, you mean I'm not crazy? No, you're not crazy. What you have is a neurologic problem. It's a brain problem. And there's something else they get. It's a pseudobulbar affect. So they start crying spontaneously. Sometimes they'll laugh spontaneously at something wrong. And they are so embarrassed that they're laughing at a funeral or that they're crying at the birthday party and everyone is worried about them and they don't know what to do or how they don't know how to deal with this. And I myself had a slight pseudobulbar affect from my head injury that I would preface when I was seeing patients. It took 2 years for that to go away. But I would preface with patients, look, I crashed my parachute. I have a head injury. It's healing. You might say something that is sad and you might see tears run down my face. I'm not sad. I'm reacting. My brain is reacting to what happened to you. And I'm in the moment with that, but I'm not sad. I don't want you to worry about me. Just keep going. Keep talking. It's just my brain. Like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I understand this. I'm telling you from an intellectual experience that I'm not sad and I want you to just keep on going and not worry about it. And so when you're able to look at a person who can't stop crying, and for the first time, and in this one particular patient that I'm thinking about, it took me 2 or 3 times to figure out, 2 or 3 events when she came in. When I finally realized and I put it together, because I always take a very thorough history when someone first sees me. Wait a minute. Let's go back. The first time this happened, you had fallen over at a funeral. You passed out on the ground. And then and this was the cry. Okay, you had head trauma. I got a medication for you. And you could give them the medication for the pseudobulbar affect that that just makes such a difference in a patient's life. And so the pseudobulbar affect that I had myself was something that it just made me a better clinician. It made me a better doctor. And now I get to help someone else. And so I look at each of these experiences now, that transition of this happened to me, this happened for me, that makes a huge difference in your life. And that is life-changing. And that's life-changing for anyone. Just be able to sit back and say, when something very bad happens, why did this happen for me? And look at that response. It's life-changing.
Yeah, the brain is such a powerful part of our body that we often forget how powerful it is, and being able to reframe that and work through that and the growth that can come from just switching our mindset. Like you said, this happened for me, not to me. And how validating to be a patient, to have somebody who really understands and, to be seen and to be heard and understood and not felt like you're crazy. And that comes up commonly with history when it comes to women's healthcare. You're like, oh, you're just crazy, or it's just menopause, or
yes, or it's menopause, or it's just a little known thing that no one knows about, and I certainly was not taught it in medical school. Was after my baby was born, I wanted to throw him. I wanted to throw him against a wall. It frightened the hell out of me. Like, why am I looking at this pretty little baby, this sweet boy, and I want to throw him? It frightened me. My husband had walked in. He had mentioned something. And then he started talking about his mom, that his mom had this idea of putting the youngest hand in the garbage disposal. And she had this irrational fear that she was going to do that. I had this irrational fear that I was going to throw my baby. My sister-in-law had this, she had mentioned she had twins. And the doctor said, oh, the little girl is so cute. She's like, yeah, it's a good thing. Otherwise I'd throw her in the trash. And she said I was only half kidding. Because this happens. This is hormone letdown, but no one explains this to you. And here I have this poor patient who comes into the hospital who was terrified that she was going to harm her baby. And for me to just say, look, this is all it is. It's hormone letdown. This is your hormones talking, not you. The relief on her face of, you mean other people feel this? And I shared my experience with her, because it's not, self-disclosure is one of the most effective tools that you can utilize in therapy. It doesn't have to, and self-disclosure doesn't look like, yeah, I had a really bad time with my husband last night and we were fighting. Like, no, that's boundary problem. But self-disclosure saying, not only, here's how I know that's normal. It happened to me. Really? Yeah, it happened to me. And I learned about it with my sister-in-law, and I learned about it with my mother-in-law. And you know what? This is hormones. It's just hormones. You are not a bad person. I don't want you to feel guilty about this. This is just hormones. Wow. This is going to go away. This is going to go away. You love your baby, right? Yeah, I love my baby so much. Of course you love your baby. You spent 9 months with this creature growing inside of you, and now you have this thing, and she's beautiful. And yeah, it's not always love at first sight. It's not something you should feel guilty about. It's just hormones. It's going to go away, and you're going to love your baby so much. Oh, that relief when you see them. Take that deep breath. Oh, it's off their chest. They feel so much better. They know they're not crazy now. Yeah. Yeah. You live it because you get to pass that on to tell other people that these are things that are normal. We've lost something with community when we all live together under one roof, and now we're living in these, our own isolated houses. We've lost something. We've lost that sense of community. We've lost that interaction with one another. And we need to start working on, it's further isolating when we've experienced trauma, because we feel safe when we're alone. And so when we need to walk out and start reaching into community, it's a very scary place. Yesterday, I walked out intentionally into a place where I feel safe, it was a place where I wrote my book, actually. Every morning I would go out to this local coffee shop. It's a beautiful little place. It's called the Waiting Room. It has this beautiful garden outside. I met someone new yesterday. I met another woman who just came to sit by the fire. Like, no, come on, sit by the fire. It's nice and warm. She's my age, and we just started talking, and I found a new friend. We're exchanging information, and so now I have a new friend. So the next time she comes here, we're gonna go out for a nice walk. We're just gonna take a nice walk out to a waterfall, and now I have a walking buddy. And so, community begins with a little bit by I'm going to bring this person in my life. Let's make sure we can trust this person. It's going to be, little by little. And then, well, maybe she'll introduce me to her next friend, and how we're, building a community of women here. And that's how it starts. That's how it begins. So, yeah, we need to start working on building trust. But trust is earned. Let's remember that. Trust is earned. Respect always, but trust is earned.
And that's huge. I love that you have, I say, over 30 years of experience. So whether you have all this experience even before you got letters added to your name, right? And that you're able to share this with so many people to impact and change so many lives. And you had shared with me that you've developed a course too, so that way you can help other women physicians as well. I would love to tell a little bit more about that to our listeners, because I'm sure if if they're not a physician, they probably know somebody. And it's just really cool to hear that somebody is doing this to help improve the lives of so many people.
Yes, so I'm doing physician coaching, and it kind of came up serendipitously because I've been looking at, well, what do I want to do? What's next for me? And Coach Andrea Ekstrom, I knew of her from another group from real estate investing, and she had some of the most amazing coaching videos that she was doing, and then she left. And I thought, well, where'd she go? Because I really like her. I learned so much from her. And I knew I wanted to meet her. And she posted something of, you know what, here's nail your niche. I want 5 women. I want to work with 5 women so you can nail your niche. And I thought, I so have wanted to work with her. So now I get to work with her. So I worked with her for 4 days, figuring out what it is that I want to do. And here it is. I'm helping overworked, overtired, overburdened, overwhelmed, underappreciated, underpaid women physicians to stop settling, to create the life that they want, to help them recognize that the system is set up to make them want to fail, to extract and exploit everything out of them. And it does. The medical system exploits all physicians, but it's really exploiting women physicians. You know, almost half of we're coming up onto 60% of new physicians are women. It's somewhere between 40 and 60%. And their burnout rates, you know, I like to say burnout is bullshit. You're not burned out. Some people don't like the cussing because it's not professional. Well, you know what? It's about time where we stand up and we tell it like it is. Because the system is relying on us to be professional. So we were selected. We were selected for the people who have that endurance from the abusive systems that led them that way. So I hear women, it's not just to help them during the physician aspect of them. It's really looking at their entire lives. And they're going to be looking at, what about their husbands? What about their parents? And I find so many women physicians with parents who don't appreciate them. I stood up in San Francisco at the Moth a couple months back. I just wanted to test some of one of the speeches that I wanted to make. And I told the story about how I was standing in line about to be called doctor for the first time. And my mother would not let go of the fact that I was wearing my glasses and that I look better without them. So wait here. I took 4 years of honors classes and busted my ass to get straight A's. As many A's as I can. I graduated 6th in my class of over 300 people. I was in the top 2% of my class. I took the SATs 4 times, including the day after my prom, so that I could break 1,000. Now, I was already accepted to a college, but there was another college that I wanted to get into, so I knew I had to break 1,000. So, and you know, I ended up not transferring credits or anything else. I stayed at the school where I was. I was getting an A in organic chemistry. I was failing French, but I was getting an A in organic chemistry. You know, it's the course that breaks people out of it. It takes out 50% at least of the students that no longer want to be doctors. Organic chemistry is a make or break one, right? And I'm getting an A in it. It's like algebra with benzene rings. I loved it. It was all math, really. I take the MCATs 4 times. Most people take them once and they're done. If they don't do well, they say, I'm not going to medical school, forget it, because I'm not taking those tests again. I did it 4 times. In my interview, the guy said, you've taken the MCAT 3 times? I said, no, I've taken the MCAT 4 times. Why would you take the MCAT 4 times? He said. I said, because that was the problem, was that test. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to become a doctor. What he heard was, this kid perseveres, that no matter what, she's going to get up and she's going to keep on going. She has that fortitude and the persistence that is required to become a doctor. And I got accepted. And I got 2 other interviews, and I just said, this is good enough. I'm going to be in New Jersey. I'm good. It's a state school. It's cheaper than the other 2. This is where I am. So, and I became a doctor. So now here, it's 4 years out, and I'm about to walk across stage, and she tells me I look better without them. She said it so often until I yelled at her to get her to stop. That's what it took. And I realized, as I walked across the stage by myself, she was supposed to walk across with me. And I walked by myself, and I turned around and I see her with this look of contempt because I did it anyway. Like whatever she did, now I understand. Now at 57, I understand where this all came from, because what she wanted me to be a prostitute. Well, I'm not a prostitute. I'm a physician. I'm someone who's going to heal other people, that help other people heal. It wasn't fitting her narrative. And so now I can look at and understand that here was a woman who just wanted to destroy me, and she couldn't destroy me. And I've been in relationships with men that are, going by with the same goal. You can't destroy me. When you've been anointed, you can't be destroyed. And really, that's how I look at it. But I'm here for service. And I'm here to serve women. And I'm here to teach women that Genesis 3 was not meant, that was a curse. That was not meant to tell women what their place is. That was meant to tell women that if this is where you are, it can never work. God created us. Genesis 1 and 2. God created us that we are Azer. It's the same term. It's the same term that God used for himself. That I am here as your ally. I'm not your helper, your aider. I'm not here to help you. I'm here as your ally. That men and women are here to work together. Jordan Peterson, I listened to Jordan Peterson say, men don't know what to do with women. They don't know how to compete with women in the workplace. They don't know how to, they know how to go to battle with men. They don't know what to do with women. Here's the thing. We're not here to compete with you. We're here as your ally. We're here to work together. We're not here to take out the competition of someone else. There's plenty to go around. We don't have to have 100%. We don't need to have the monopoly. We're here to lift each other up. When everyone gets lifted up, we all benefit. We all do better. That's our rightful place. And as a woman physician, that's what I'm here to teach other women physicians. That we're not just someone who, it was sad. I spoke to a woman who said that she has to tell her male colleagues her ideas, and then they bring them to the table and they think it's great. And she's okay with that. What do you mean you're okay with that? You're in the wrong spot. And you've got skills, and you've got patients that are going to follow you. It's time to build your own table. She's not ready, and that's okay. That's where she is. She's not ready to hear that. No matter what spiritual concept that I tossed out there, she was ready to argue something different. No, she's not ready. But if you're stuck in that space, if you're in that space as a woman physician, where you're looking at, is this all there is? Where you're constantly called provider, that term just irritates the hell out of me. I am not a provider. I didn't go to provider school. I am a physician, and I expect to be called doctor. And the last place I worked, I was hesitant to go back to work. And most of it was because I did not want to argue with the IT tech over my name. My name is not Dawn. My name is Dawnmarie. Number two, I'm Dr. Risley. Okay, Dawn. Repeatedly. And then when I asked my male colleagues, what do they call you? Well, they call me doctor and by my last name. That level of denigration, you're in a very toxic place. And the last place that I worked, I was very direct with IT. I said, in this setting, I am Dr. Risley, and I expect to be called that. I earned it. Oh, sorry. Some of my colleagues like called it. No, they don't. I'm telling you right now that they don't, and don't ever do it again. When you're constantly setting limits with someone, so much as the IT guy who can be replaced, at the end of June with how many people does Virginia Tech produce? You can be replaced in an instant. It takes 12 years to replace me to do the job that I'm doing. So when you are that disrespected, and it was in court, and it's everywhere. Here's the thing, it's in court too. I had to set limits with court. I had a woman judge calling me Miss Childs. And here I am sending out an email to county council. Dear county council, I want to clear up some things that were confusing for me the last time in court, because Miss Childs could be my stepdaughter who sometimes interns in the court. And so I wasn't sure whether or not my stepdaughter was in the room, or were they referring to my husband's ex-wife who's a judge there who uses that last name. In this setting, I'm Dr. Risley. She called me Miss Childs, called my male colleague Dr. Shaw. So even as women, we need to stop cutting each other's roots. That's got to stop, because you're as guilty as the problem. We have to be willing to look at ourselves. And that's where we have to be willing to look at the mothers, right? That's where I was. And I'm just as guilty of, am I guilty of some malignancy in my own home? Absolutely. I'm bringing my childhood with me. All right. This is part of the healing process, is being able to look at yourself and say, yeah, I was not fair here. But I get up every day with the goal of being a better mom. Every day.
I love how much that you're able to inspire and impact multiple avenues in your life. Like you were even saying, just setting boundaries, right? And then also being and leading as a good example for your daughter. Like that's really cool that you're doing that in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
I want to make sure to remind people that we will have links below for your book and your course, how to contact you. But gosh, I feel like we've had such a deep conversation that we could talk for hours.
We can.
I'm going to make sure if there's anything we missed, or if you have some final thoughts to leave our audience with before we move on for today.
Well, I think the big thing is taking responsibility for yourself. Looking at why you were there. Now, understanding and recognizing that you were just a kid when these things happened to you. But you're an adult now. And now it's time to take responsibility. And it's okay to stand up. The shame is not yours. That's the big thing. You want to shed that shame. You want to get rid of the shame. You want to say, this shame is not mine and I'm not carrying it anymore. And the freedom that forgiveness provides, forgiving yourself, it's going to be your biggest hurdle. It's forgiving yourself. But know that there is something fantastic on the other side. And also, your podcast is about hope. That's not a straight line. Are there mornings where I wake up completely hopeless? Oh, yes. There are more. It's part of the process. There are times where I just feel like I have no hope today. Meaning what that means really is that I just need to rest today. Because it's when we're in the rest that everything comes. That's when God comes. God comes when you're in the rest. So know that. Let's stop feeling guilty about always having to work harder, work more. Maybe today I need to rest and rest. That's what you need. Maybe it's not that you're hopeless. Maybe you just need to rest. Go sleep.
So beautifully said. I want to thank you so much for sharing your insight and your passion and obviously your time, but this valuable experiences that you offer everyone. And thank you so much for coming on and being a guest.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It was great being here.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.